Welcome back, true believers and spectacular Spidey fans, to another really exciting episode of Spider-Man PS4 101. Now, in case you missed it, we have recently received a brand new trailer of Spider-Man PS4 showing off the city of New York. And even though that trailer was absolutely amazing, there's also been other news relating to Spider-Man PS4's lore with the newest Daily Bugle newspaper online. Now, as you should all know, we have been receiving online iterations of the Daily Bugle newspaper on PlayStation's website, and today we have received the third issue of the series. And given all the details that this newspaper provides, this is easily my most favorite Daily Bugle issue so far. And to start off with, the newspaper's main headline is "The Vulture Squawks, Toombs Claims Frame-Up Blames Wallcrawler." And this part of the newspaper is written by Daily Bugle journalist Ben Urich, who says Adrian Toombs, aka the high-flying Vulture, used his day in court to crow for his crimes. Upon taking the stand, Vulture screeched about Spider-Man instead of owning up to his criminal behavior. Toombs claimed the masked vigilante was the true mastermind behind his dastardly deeds. The jury humored Toombs, as it's a well-known fact Spider-Man was the very one to apprehend the bald buzzard for the police. With a unanimously guilty verdict and his wings clipped, the Birdman can warble all he wants about his innocence from his personal cell in the maximum security prison, the Raft. So it's really nice to get a little bit more of a backstory to Vulture in this little snippet of the newspaper, and I just can't wait to see what else he's going to do in the full game. Now, moving on to the next section of the newspaper relates to Harry Osborn's involvement in the city with his Oscorp research stations. And this section of the newspaper states, "A bright sun in the city. Harry Osborn lobbies for environmental sustainability by Robbie Robertson." Mayor Norman Osborn announced the brilliant scientist behind the revival of his late wife's research program. It happens to be none other than their young entrepreneurial son, Harry Osborn. An idea once thought impractical, the program was a passion project of young Harry Osborn, who reportedly dedicated the past few years to proving out the potential of the rooftop labs. According to the materials distributed by Oscorp, the rooftop labs were primed to assess city smog levels and monitor clean water systems, among other environmental factors. When the idea was presented to City Council, Harry's project was not only awarded a generous grant, but became a centerpiece of his father's citywide improvement initiative. Environmental advocates anticipate positive change throughout New York City from the lab's findings, with the hopes that the program becomes an example of the future of clean, sustainable city living. So not only will you be able to access these research stations as Spider-Man, but it's really cool to see how much of a narrative that they will have for the story in general. And given the research stations that we've seen in action already, I'm very curious to see what the other ones are going to be like. Now, moving on with the newspaper is actually a really cool advertisement for Roxxon Corporation. And knowing that we're already going to get lots of Marvel landmarks like Oscorp and the Avengers Tower, it's really cool to see another company like Roxxon be in the game as well. And this little advertisement says, "As your trusted energy source for over a century, we're working to ensure a clean future for everyone. Let's refine the future together." And seeing how Oscorp looks like to be playing a big role during some parts of the game's story, I'm really curious to see how big Roxxon's involvement is going to be in the game as well. Now, moving on to my favorite part about this newspaper is the incorporation of citizens in New York City cosplaying as Spider-Man. And this section of the newspaper states, "Amateur Arachnids, Spider-Menace is rousing a generation of DIY vigilantes, special opt by J. Jonah Jameson. The Spider-Menace's influence over the city is out of control. Children's costumes and Halloween masks are one thing, but when copycats are prowling the streets in bargain store costumes, it's a problem. It seems another side effect of his unchecked vigilantism comes in the form of powerless imitators running amok. Sure, they'll get a few perks of wearing his mask, like fan selfies and freebies from Spider sympathizers, but they won't be so lucky when they come across any one of the webhead's enemies. One moment they're squeezing ketchup on their Free Frank, and the next they're receiving a kiss of a big burly fist from one of Spider-Man's angry adversaries. I implore you all to leave crime fighting to the courageous men and women of the police force. As if one Spider-Menace wasn't enough, they sure don't need a militia of costume amateurs harassing people on the street. And the Spider-Brat certainly doesn't need any more encouragement than he's got. So not only is it awesome that Insomniac are incorporating civilian interactions to the point that you can just wave at them and high-five them and even take selfies with them, but there's actually going to be citizens wearing Spider-Man costumes. And in my opinion, that is one of my most favorite parts about this game so far, because I find that absolutely hilarious. So definitely make sure to keep your eyes peeled when swinging around the city to hopefully come across any Spider-Man cosplayers, because I know I will. And moving right along to the next section of the newspaper obviously relates to Kingpin himself, Wilson Fisk, by saying, "Fisk is back. Mogul brushes off Kingpin rumors as new tower opens," by Cat Farrell. Wilson Fisk returned from his business trip to Japan for the grand opening of Fisk Tower. Fisk himself sliced the symbolic opening ribbon strung in front of the entrance, appearing unfettered by the recent allegations framing him as New York City's criminal kingpin. Just a short while ago, the Daily Bugle was the first to report that Wilson Fisk's offices had been searched in an effort to put the Kingpin rumors surrounding him to rest. Authorities who conducted the investigation concluded there was no evidence suggesting connections between Fisk and New York City's organized crime. As a result, the investigation was closed. When asked for comment about the scandal, Fisk's only response was a coy smile, a sip of his brandy, and a referral to his lawyers. While the CEO celebrates his new self-titled high-rise, the police commissioner is in talks with police captain Yuri Watanabe about future protocol for investigations. So seeing how shady Kingpin's going to be within the game really makes me excited to take him down during the boss fight, because I know for a fact it's going to be one heck of a fun time to beat him down. Now, coming to the final section of this Daily Bugle newspaper is basically featuring two articles discussing about Martin Lee and Spider-Man himself. Now, to summarize the Spidey article, it basically talks about people in New York City thinking that Spider-Man is either a hero or a menace, which is something that we've already heard before. But alongside the citizens feeling divided about Spider-Man, it's very clear that Norman Osborn is not a fan of him at all. And like we saw during the Comic-Con trailer, it's obvious to see that Norman Osborn is going to do whatever he can to take out Spider-Man. But as for the article relating to Martin Lee, it mainly discusses about his backstory of how he got to New York, which I find very interesting. So this section states a different kind of superhero, a closer look at Martin Lee by Ben Urich. Everyone has a past, yet wealthy businessman Martin Lee seemingly doesn't. The Daily Bugle investigated just how he became New York City's most beloved philanthropist. Turns out, Lee epitomizes the American dream. As an orphan, Lee bounced between Manhattan foster homes before disappearing to China, the homeland of his immigrant parents. Nearly a decade later, Lee returned with millions of dollars and a big heart. Upon his arrival, Lee founded his feast shelters to ensure nobody ever feels forgotten or abandoned. Lee's mysterious past resembles that of the costume crime fighters protecting our neighborhoods, minus the mask and the suit. In fact, Martin Lee could be the everyday hero we've waited for. So knowing that the city will be divided on Spider-Man during certain points in the game, but they really do appreciate Martin Lee's genuine personality, is really gonna be interesting to see how they discover that he is actually Mr. Negative. And I don't know about all of you, but one of my most anticipated boss fights for this game is going to be Mr. Negative, because I think he's going to be awesome to take down. But anyways, guys, that's all the news I have for you today relating to Spider-Man PS4. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below, and what did you think of the latest Daily Bugle newspaper? Like I said earlier, this is my favorite newspaper that we've received so far, and hopefully there will be at least one more before the game ships. But anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Peace out.
I gotta say, you look just like me. Except, you're more angry back alley than friendly neighborhood.
Oh, for decades I've wanted to shut that mouth of yours.